So for those of you that are here, I want to go ahead and start and say hello. I'm Cynthia Dice. I'm with Triangle Artworks, and I'm here today with Ann Elmore from the Secretary of State's office. I'm so glad that we could do this program for you. I think it's super important for artists to fully understand how to register their business properly, and Ann knows her stuff. She's going to definitely get you straight. Throughout the call today, we're going to have a few polls. We're going to have some interactive things. If you have never done this before, we'll explain them as we go. Hopefully this will be really fun. I want to want to take a moment here to give a little Triangle Artworks commercial. I'll be popping some links to some upcoming events in the chat. Obviously, you know about Triangle Artworks because you're here, but we do our events. They're for artists. They're for artists, arts educators, arts administrators. That's the point of Triangle Artworks, is to help you make your business better. The way that we get our ideas is from you. So if you have an idea for a program, if you have questions, things that you need to know about to help your business better, help your business be better, reach out to Triangle Artworks. You can just email info@Triangle Artworks. You can reach out to us on social media. So Ann, if you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. I will still be here behind the scenes doing some things. I'm going to let my screen go dark just so that I can fully attend to all of my little pop-ups that Zoom is giving me.
Okay, now Cynthia, you're going to be watching the chat too?
I am. I'm going to be watching the chat and doing all that stuff. So
excellent.
I'm not abandoning you. And also, I want to hear this information. This is super important information. So,
oh, fabulous. Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, Triangle Artworks. It's a real pleasure to be here with all of you. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad you are. This is not a group we often talk to, and you're a really important part of our community. And so I hope we can bring you some information today which will help you in your arts-based business. So let's just get started really quick. All right, we're talking today DBA for artists, North Carolina business registration, assumed names, and more specifically for you, the arts community. I'm Ann Elmore with the North Carolina Department of the Secretary of State. So let's talk just a bit about you. There's lots of people who've come on since we got started. So please, if you would, hover your mouse, or if you have a touch screen, your finger at the top or bottom of your screen, and you should see a green button that says you are seeing Ann's screen. And then next to that is a black button which says annotate. If each and every one of you will hit that button, and you'll see then that you have the opportunity to select some tools. So why don't you select a tool and align and draw on the screen a little bit, not anything real big because there's plenty of you. And take a moment to draw what moved you to come to this webinar at this time. I figure y'all are visually based, so let's give me a sense of what it is that brought you here. I am a DBA. Okay, all right. Lots of questions. Buffy, the light bulb's coming on. Good. I hope you get lots of light bulbs coming on. Getting serious about my business. Yes, yes. It's not just a passion. It can be a profession, a way of earning an income. And it's important details that we're going to talk about that. I feel better with music. Music is arts too. All right, fabulous. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts about what brings you today. All right. So let me just clear the screen if I can. I can't seem to clear the screen right this second. All right. Well, you know, I see some question marks on here, and I'll bet you guys have some points of confusion. And we're going to talk about some issues that are confusing to people. And that's not just across the arts community, it's across the entire community. Business registration. Is that the same or different from DBA or assumed business names? Is it the same or different from EINs, licensing, permitting, intellectual property, such as copyright, trademarks, patents, trade secrets? Oh my goodness. Well, each of them are different. Each of them are different. The two that just flashed on your screen, business registration and DBA, are two we'll focus on today. But we are going to talk about all of them because they're all important to you. All right. Cynthia.
Yes, ma'am.
If you could please clear the screen. Thank you so much. All right. So why Secretary of State? Well, the Secretary of State's Business Registration Division processes new company creation documents. We handle your annual reports. We handle other corporate documents. We maintain the assumed business name database. Our Secretary of State is Elaine Marshall. She has held office since 1997. And since she took over the reins, there's been a huge boom in business registrations within North Carolina. When she first took office in 1997, there were 31,500 new business registrations. Just to give you an idea, there were that many in the first 2 months of this year. So, who am I? I'm a North Carolina licensed attorney, a retired assistant district attorney, and it says a 29-year prosecutor whose career included bringing to justice fraudsters of all kinds. I was also, after retiring, an aspiring entrepreneur navigating hurdles of starting a business. And I've talked to my cousin, who is an artist herself, and she has gone through the business registration process, and we'll talk about what motivated her and what probably will motivate many of you. Now, what I do is reach out to our community on behalf of the Secretary of State to make sure you're aware of the resources available to help you. Now, since I am a lawyer, forgive me, but I got to. This workshop is a general educational experience. It should not be construed as legal advice. Legal advice is given to you in the context of an attorney-client relationship, so you can air out all the specifics of your situation without worrying about them being disclosed to somebody else, maybe a competitor or somebody else who might draw benefit from it. It's for you, but you got to consult with a North Carolina licensed attorney if you're practicing or you're doing business in North Carolina. All right. And be sure and discuss all the particular circumstances. This kind of environment where we're talking very quickly, this is not the kind of considered environment, or just catching a lawyer on the street is not the kind of considered environment to take as gospel any guidance given. All right. It needs to be with an eye to your particular circumstances. The views expressed are my own, and I believe all the information is accurate. However, mistakes obviously occur, but also importantly, and we've seen this during the pandemic especially, not only do laws and regulations differ from state to state, but they change over time. State to state. You know, in the last election, the general election, we saw how very different states election laws are. Well, their laws regarding a whole lot of other things are very different too. So let's talk about where are you? Cynthia, do we have the first poll? Let's see if we can pull it out. All right. Where are you? If you all would enter your responses, we'll just give this about 30 seconds. Make sure everybody has a chance to enter their response.
It's counting down on its own for us, Ann, or counting up,
Wonderful.
I guess, as the case may be.
Wonderful. I see that. All right, let's end this. We got 100% in North Carolina only, at least for now. All right, fantastic. You're in the right place. You're talking with the North Carolina Department of the Secretary of State. All right, fabulous. That's 100% of you are in North Carolina. Wonderful. All right. Let's look at where are your customers, your clients, your patrons. All right. Let's see what we have here. If you take a moment to answer, where are they? I say take a minute, let's take 30 seconds. All right. Let's share this. What do we see here? Well, we see that 10% of you have clients in North Carolina. Others in North Carolina and beyond our state boundaries. 5% only in state or states outside North Carolina, and some reach outside the US. Okay, this is real important information. Why? Because it informs who you talk to. You need, if you're working outside the United States, if you have a significant client base outside the United States, you need to speak with someone who knows whereof they speak about that. And that is not everybody, okay? And if you have significant number of clients, you're doing a significant amount of business elsewhere, even if you're based in North Carolina, then you need to make sure that any person whom you consult knows that fact. Where you are, where your clients are, that makes a difference because the law of the jurisdictions you're working in applies. Okay, so we're going to talk about the hand. The hand, right? The hand has it. And that's sort of the organizing principle of this presentation. I'm going to give the thumb why register. Why? Because the thumb can easily reach each one of the other fingers and it informs or motivates the other items on our hands. All right, for today's discussion. And the saying goes, when you lose your way, when you lose your why, excuse me, you lose your way. When you lose your why, you lose your way. So we're going to talk about why register, which entity type, what name, how to go about registering now, and what you got to do next, okay? Everybody got a feel for the finger organizational tool for this presentation. All right, let's talk about the why. The why. You'll get a PDF and it has this chart. I want you to have this chart. This is an important chart, but you can always access it. It is on our website. Owner liability. That's a big motivator for people of all stripe, not just artists, but the whole spectrum of our community to register their business. You'll see that there are some in the left-hand column, some entity types: sole proprietor, general partnership. They have unlimited liability. You will also note that those folks do not register with us. They do not register with us, okay? There's no registration, no annual report, no nothing. And, you know, you can do that, and lots of people do. But this owner liability issue is huge to many of us in a very litigious society in which we now live. And let's be real, whether you are having students in your studio or having people in your studio, or you're taking your art installation, let's say it's sculpture elsewhere or artwork, and somebody is injured. As my cousin's husband asked her, do you really want to put our house at risk? That's a huge issue for a lot of people. And what registering your business gives you is separation. Separation in terms of liability. Now, it's a starting point, but if you don't act like your business, your arts-based business is separate and distinct from your personal business, that is, you use your business as your piggy bank, going back and forth with credit cards and that kind of thing, then anybody who is injured or claims to be injured will be able to pierce the corporate veil, so to speak. That is, if they can demonstrate that, you know, you are still one and the same. You may be claiming to be an LLC or a corporation, but you're really, it's really just your piggy bank, and it's one and the same with you. Then don't waste your time, okay? Because if you're trying to protect your personal assets, your family's assets to which you are an owner, please consider it's an important and necessary step, but it is not enough in and of itself. You got to treat it like a business. So that is the biggest why. It may also make it easier to get some kinds of funding, loans, and that kind of thing. But one of you was so kind to submit a question, and you indicated, and I so do appreciate that, about some grants are not providing funding to LLCs or S corporations. Well, okay, you know, you have to look at and balance the pros and the cons. I don't know what kind of arts-based business you do, but there's always going to be pros and cons. And just because you cannot, or a particular grant offer won't extend grants or funding to LLCs and S Corps, doesn't mean you can't be a nonprofit corporation. So, and that also, by the way, is registered with the Secretary of State. You'll see it right there in the middle of the chart we're looking at, right there in the middle. That is one of those types of entities that is registered with us. And that does give you life. So just a thought. Now, do we have anybody who is in, let's see. Do we have anybody who's in nonprofits? Are you all strictly for-profits? Are some of you nonprofits, undecided, one of each? Let's take a moment. All right, everybody have a chance? Most everybody? All right, let's stop. Let's see what we've got here. All right. Well, we see that most of y'all are for a for-profit arts business. Okay, great. Some of you are undecided, and then we have a small percentage, at least one of each. All right, that's fabulous. You're in the right place. By the way, if you do consider going into a nonprofit charity situation and you will be soliciting for donations, contributions, please be aware that the Secretary of State also regulates that sphere, and you'll reach out to our charitable solicitation division, okay? Our charitable solicitation division. All right. So which entity type then, you might ask? And the choice literally is yours. And I would encourage you to make that in consultation with whoever does your financials, your tax preparer, your insurance, your full range of professionals. And, you know, there's a saying in my line of work, and that is that, you know, you can have a team to bail you in or a team to bail you out. It's far less stressful, far less expensive if you have this team in place and they can keep you safe. And what is bail? B is banker. A is accountant. I, insurance. L, lawyer, okay? So, but these are important questions, and you don't know the value of these people unless you're here. So I am so grateful that you all are here. So not only do you know the value, but you'll have additional questions to ask. So bottom line is, what entity form you choose is strictly up to you, but we can help you. If you will go to our website, Launching a North Carolina Business, and that's for profit or not for profit, choose a business structure. If you go there and you go to that button, it will literally not only take you to that entity comparison chart, but it will take you through these hot buttons and it will give you further details about each entity type. And at the bottom, there is a link to the forms for that entity type. All right, so which entity type? Well, let's look at the stats in North Carolina, the statistics in North Carolina. Whether it was 2018, 2019, or during the coronavirus 2020, what is the most popular entity type? Anybody? Unmute yourself. Tell me, what's the most popular entity type?
LLC?
Yes, LLC. And it's not even close. LLC is far and away the most popular type because of its simplicity, okay? Just say it. The choice is yours, but that is, in North Carolina, the most popular entity type. So what name? You say, that's easy, right? So glad you're here. There's actually more to a name than you might think at first blush. So you'll go here, and I urge you, even if you're going to use our online business creation tool, walk yourself through the process or use the guide that I will send you in the PDF so that you are aware of all of, or a lot more of, the implications of this or that. All right, so when you're looking at what name, because you got to have an entity type in order to register, and you got to have a name. Well, it's not just a matter of having a name, and I bet you everybody's got a name in mind. You got to do two things. Well, it's more than two things. You got to have the name. you gotta make sure you can register it, but that's a minimum. That's a mandatory minimum if you're gonna register, right? You don't wanna pay your money to register and not be able to register, okay? We don't want that to happen. So you gotta have a name that's registerable, but you also have to have a name that's safe to use, that somebody else hasn't got dibs on, legal dibs on, all right? So really important. And then you put the name in use, okay? So we're gonna focus on this middle, determining whether the name is feasible to use, whether you can register it in the first place, and even if you can register it, and this ultimately will be a decision that you make. We make whether it's registerable or not decision, but you make the decision about whether it's a good idea to use that name if somebody else has a claim to it. So, bottom line, why do you need to check? Well, so you're not wasting your money, right? So to make sure you can register it, but also to make sure you're not going to spend a whole lot of money trying to defend your use of that name because somebody else has got a claim to it. And even if they don't have a technical legal claim, if they've been using it and it's got baggage, you know, that can cause you complications that you don't need. So what do you need to do to make sure that name is available in North Carolina? There's 3 places you need to check in our database. Yes, it's Secretary of State's database, but actually there are 3 separate silos, if you will, 3 separate tranches of information, okay? The first is our business registration database. The second is our trademark database. And the third is the assumed business name database. 3 places you gotta check, okay?
I just want to interject here, Ann. I'm popping those URLs in the chat for everybody as we're going.
Woo!
So before we leave, I'll make sure everybody knows how to download their chat.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much, Cynthia. All right, so this is our business registration search, and you can see you can search 2 things here. You can search the company registered and the assumed business name. You can do from this screen, so you can reach into 2 databases. And there's different ways you can search, and I invite you to search different kinds of ways, all right, because we don't want you to be wasting your money. All right, when you're searching, you got to be aware that if there is a business already with that name, but it's a corporation or it's an LLC and you're going to be something different, that's not a legal difference. That's not distinguishable on our records. And so it will not pass. So please, you know, look for variations. And also a real popular thing for a lot of folks to do is to use Arabic numbers, you know, numerals instead of words like the number 4 for the word for, ampersands instead of the word and, that kind of thing. So please bear in mind that, you know, those kind of differences don't constitute distinguishable differences. And if you're not watching out for that, that can cause you to lose out. So please consider that when you're doing your searches. So I'm going to emphasize this. It's got to be distinguishable in our records from the names of other domestic and foreign business entities. And sometimes people are cute, but the thing is, it has to be lawful. It has to be lawful. And it has to be consistent with what you indicate in your articles of incorporation. So that's another reason to go through this and look at everything. Make sure you got all the information lined up before you proceed. Okay, here's what our trademark database looks like, and you can see you can search it all kinds of ways. All right, please be sure and check the trademark database. All right, so let's roll out that next poll about assumed business names. Let's talk about that. Y'all take a look at the assumed business name poll. I know at least one of you's filed one of those. Uh-oh, we've lost everybody. We're not getting any responses.
I think this poll takes a little more consideration than the previous ones. It's a lot to read.
We'll give this a minute then so folks can.
And now everybody's answered, Ann.
Ah, fabulous. All right, well, we still got a few more in, so let me just do the first one, number one. Just do number one. All right, let's see what we got here. Share results. All right, so let's look at number one. Before today, mark all of the following that are true for you. I've filed an assumed business name or DBA certificate, 14%. Okay, you knew what they were, 3. Knew they had to be filed with the Register of Deeds, very good. And let's see, we got some that did know that we maintain that searchable database. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, that's good news. But I got to tell you, though, assumed business names are a real source of confusion for a lot of folks. So let's talk about them. Assumed business names are also called fictitious names, trade names. You may see them referenced as the initials ABN, DBA, FBN. FBN is fictitious business name. And it is literally any name other than the legal name of the person behind the business, if it's a sole proprietor or general partnership, or the entity, okay? Anything other than the legal name of the person or entity. So who has to file? Yes, even unregistered businesses have to file if they use anything other than their legal name in the company name. For instance, if you call yourself Jane's Art Studio, who knows Jane's last name or who's behind the business? They don't. So Jane has to, if she's going to call herself Jane's Art Studio, she has to file an assumed business name. All right. If she said Jane Smith Studio and Gallery, that's a different matter. All right. So what about if you're registered? Yeah, sometimes you do still have to file an assumed business name if you use anything other than the name you registered with the Secretary of State. And that gets into a lot of problems where people try to register their business and they haven't gotten the domain name. They haven't secured their domain before they proceed. Oops. And then you find out somebody else has got your domain. So you have to figure out something. You truncate your name, you shorten it, or there's lots of reasons why. If you use anything other than the name you registered, and it's at the top of your articles of organization, you have got to file. It is required. That's why you file. It's required. I mean, literally, the law says that any person who engages in business in this state under a name other than their own or the one they registered with the Secretary of State, they got to file the certificate, and it is filed with the County Register of Deeds where the business will be engaged in activity. So it's registered.
Hey, Ann?
Yeah.
I just want to interject here really quickly. This is just a little, because I know that we have a lot of folks that have this question. I'm going to put on my marketing hat for a second. You need to research on all social media platforms for your URL, for everything before you pick your name. Do not have 15 different, essentially different names for your business. Like one thing on Instagram, because the one you usually use wasn't available, and a different URL, and then a different one on your banner at shows. Like, spend the time to do all that research if you have not yet started your business. If you're already, yeah. So I mean, you want to research it everywhere, not just your URL, not just your Instagram, not just your Twitter, not just your TikTok, not just like, get them all. Make sure that they're all registered.
And I just do screenshots. I mean, what you do is up to you. And if you are working with a lawyer who does it, they'll do something different. I don't know what they'll do, or they may advise you to do something. But a screenshot is helpful so you know what you've done and when. Okay, really important. Here also is something, the Register of Deeds is where you register, okay? You file this with the local Register of Deeds. But here's the thing, before December 1st, 2017, you would have to go into each of the counties in which you operated if you were using something other than your own name, and you would have to file to the tune of $26 a pop. Well, now you can specify all, and it will be all counties if you choose to, for that same single $26 fee. And the filings now do not expire. What does that mean? Well, that's one of those, what next things. And that is, if you go out of business or it changes hands, then you need to make sure that is reflected at your local Register of Deeds. Okay, very, very important. But also bear in mind something real important. And that is, if you filed before December 1st, 2017, it's going to expire. It's going to expire because of the law change. It wasn't until December 1st, 2017 that our legislature created a central database so you can search these things. Up until that time, you literally had to go from county to county to county. And you still do after a fashion, and we'll talk about that. Why file? Because if you do not file, it has real consequences. If you are found liable for harm to somebody, then you can be made to pay reasonable expenses, including investigators' fees and legal fees, to find out who you are so that you could be sued. Okay, so and it's basically the assumed business name law in this state is a transparency thing. It is a consumer protection requirement. Everybody's got to do it. And think about it, it's also helpful. A certified copy of the assumed business name certificate, especially for businesses that do not register, can be really helpful, because not only is it prima facie evidence of the facts required by the certificate, and it may be useful in getting bank accounts and other sorts of things, but also it puts others on notice that you are using that name. Now, we talk about Register of Deeds, and one of the questions related to a business using that same name in another state. Registers of Deeds are on a county basis. At the most, an assumed business name gives you reach across the entire state. It does not give you reach into other states, okay? Business registration is done on a state-by-state basis. When you get into things like trademarks of your name or your brand, that's something you can do at the federal level, okay? Which brings us to another issue. But before we get there, oops, my battery is running low, so let me get that. All right. All right, so where are they filed? They're all filed at the local register of deeds, not with us. There can be a 30-day delay between local filing and uploading to our database. So be sure and check with your local register of deeds. Now, I've got circled there starting a new business, and that'll take you to the forms. But you can search the records just like you would search for sales owners and sellers of homes. You can search assumed business names, all right? And it is done often online. But remember, new filings are not necessarily online. You'd have to speak with your local register of deeds regarding how quickly they put their filings of assumed business name online. But they are uploaded, the law requires that they be uploaded to the Secretary of State within 30 days. Now, remember, if they registered before December 1st, 2017, it's not going to be in the state database. So it's real important that you check with the county register of deeds to check about the name, whether somebody's already being used or using it, okay? And remember, if they registered before December 1st, 2017, and they do not renew, then it lapses December 1st, 2022. All those names lapse. Those filings lapse if they are not refiled before December 1st, 2022. So if you know anybody who's traveling under an old assumed business name, then they need to refile. The new ones are last indefinitely, which is why you need to withdraw them or modify them as circumstances demand. Okay. So this is really highly desirable that you check this, okay? Now here's our state database, the assumed business name database, and it's real easy to search. And I encourage you all to do that. What else to check? You know, Cynthia mentioned the social media. Yes, check federal trademarks, because a lot of businesses do get federal registration, which means it has reach across the entire nation, and it affects goods and services coming across our borders as a country. So please do check for the same or similar name to a trademark that is in their database. Domain names, we've talked about these already, and Cynthia put her finger on it precisely. And that is, you don't want to have lots of different names because it makes it hard for your patrons, your clients, your customers to find you, okay? It makes it hard to develop name recognition, creates a whole lot of confusion. And if you don't check these things out at the outset, it creates additional obligations like having to register your DBA. So check it out. All right. And Cynthia mentioned this. You got to make sure you check as widely as you can to see if that name that you cherish, that you thought it was a one of, has already been used and has got maybe some baggage on it. So be very careful. Even if it doesn't have any negative baggage, you got to be careful because sometimes if you're in the same line of work, then somebody will claim that you're engaging in unfair business practices. You just don't need that. Not to mention, your customers may go to them, your clients, your patrons. You just don't need that kind of trouble, whether or not it involves legal liability. It's just not worth it. Now, we have got a simple tool that will walk you through all of this. Well, actually, you're filling in the blanks. So that's why we went through all this process. So you know how important it is to check. This will just fill in the blanks. And that's why I said you want to walk through this process outside of that, so you know what you'll have ready to fill in the blanks, right? But it'll say, you'll see whether the name is available or not. Please be careful, because just because a name can be registered does not mean it's free of risk or complication. That's a low bar, relatively speaking, that you have to climb over. For safety's sake, you're going to want to check more broadly than that. So remember, a search is only as good as how thorough it is and how recently it is conducted. Remember, I said in the first 2 months of this year, there's as many businesses being created as in all of 1997. So just a word of caution there. So if you're not, yes.
And I'm sorry, I want to ask a question that came up in the chat, and I just don't want us to get too far away from it. I'm sorry to interrupt, but so Laura Boykin asked if she has not registered a name, but the name is published as intellectual property in a dissertation at UNC Chapel Hill that was published. So she, I think, is just asking a little bit. Could we just open that up and let her actually clarify her question a little for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that, but I would like everybody to hear it.
Okay. So Laura, go ahead and unmute and ask your question a little more clearly, just so I'm not translating badly.
So for my example is for my dissertation, I had 3 CDs of music called under the I Feel Better with Music title, and a book, a children's story book, and a program. So that was all published as a dissertation, all those products as part of the research for the dissertation. So it is published and it's at UNC Chapel Hill, which is available nationally and internationally. So because that's published, does that mean, and that was 2008, does that mean that that is mine?
I didn't know that's an excellent question though, Laura. Seriously, it depends. You know, did you give your rights to them? Have you looked closely at what the terms were? Are they claiming copyright? Did you reserve copyright? You know, all of these things depend. And the extent, you don't have to register to get copyright, but it affects your ability to collect damages, whether you register or not, how much you can collect in damages. But that's totally different from business registration. But you know, you hearken back to that first thing that's a source of confusion. Business registration is different from assumed business name, which is different from trademark, copyright, and all those others. They are all different. All different. They serve different purposes, okay? Remember, for liability protection, people often register their businesses. You may register your intellectual property so that then if somebody uses your property without your permission, then you get much more in damages. It's easier to make out a case, okay? It just depends on what you're doing. Bottom line is, y'all, if you selected a name, you've done the research, you can reserve the name. It's for 120 days. That's not real long. So, you know, when you get ready to go, consider getting ready to go and going. Okay, the interval is non-renewable, but you can file another one immediately afterward. And this is the form. It's an easy form to do. It's very, very simple. Okay, it doesn't cost much. So what if the name is already registered as an assumed business name? Well, look at what counties and consider at what kind of business it is registered in connection with. Right, but be careful. Seriously consider consulting an attorney if you're going to use a name that's already in use. Real important. If it's possible to transfer that name. If the entity, the business is dissolved, you know, you might be able to pick it up. It depends on how much time has elapsed. I've got the statute there. But consider consulting an attorney before you do that, because like I said, you don't know what the baggage may be with that, okay? And
hey, Ann,
yeah.
I just want to interject because I got another question in the chat. Sorry about that. But so what if somebody is they want to use their own name? And this is a question especially for artists, because a lot of artists are working under their own name, but they, you know, they want to make it more official as a business. They want to make their artwork, they want to sell their artwork as a sole proprietorship or as an LLC, but they're still using their own name. You can, so how, and how would that be affected?
All right,
is it the same as if it's just a, you know, whether I'm using my name, Cynthia Dice, or I'm using, you know, a made up word? Like, are those basically treated the exact same?
No,
I think that's the question.
It depends. I mean, it is not treated exactly the same. But the thing is, the made up word may be easier in the long haul. Why? Because you may choose to sell your interest in your studio. You may be ready to go on to something else or retire or maybe you are dealing with illness in the family, whatever, and you want to sell it. It's really hard not only to sell something that's strictly named with your name all over it, but also consider this. How would you feel about somebody else operating under your name? And, you know, you don't have control over what they're doing. So, you know, things to think about. There's no right or wrong. It just all depends, and it's a weighing process. And that's why I'm so glad you guys are here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And if that's what you're going to do, seriously consult getting an attorney about it. All right, next step, register your business. There's lots of ways to do it. We have an online creation tool. We have a video that'll walk you through that process. It takes 9 minutes and 30 seconds to go through that video. All right. Please consider doing that if you want to do it. It makes it easy peasy, but I want you to go through the process like I've talked about of actually checking these different databases, okay? Please check these databases. Why? Because remember what I told you. Registration of your name being okay for registration purposes is like a mandatory minimum. That doesn't mean it's safe to use in commerce. So please, all right, we got lots of videos to help you. Okay, lots of videos. And if you're not going to use the online creation tool, which literally walks you through the whole process, you just go to the entity you choose. Now, whoever has a nonprofit, there's a nonprofit corporation is an entity option. You would just click that button and you see down at the bottom, it's got the forms. And remember, it talks to you about the various characteristics, okay? And then the forms, articles of organization right there for the LLC. Just fill it out and you're gonna send it in. You can send it in via mail, of course. You can, but we prefer you do it online, and you prefer you do it online. Why? Because there's instant feedback, there's instant turnaround, okay? So please consider filing online. There's 2 ways to file online. That business creation tool I told you about, or filling out the PDF and then filing that online, okay? You get detailed instructions. We guide you as you fill out the PDF, okay? I encourage you to save your PDF as you filled it out, okay? So you can modify it. This is a source of confusion to people on the articles of organization capacity. Member simply means owner, and many of you will be single member LLCs if you choose the LLC entity. Organizer is the person who's filling out the paperwork, okay? And by the way, if you ever can't remember, we put the statute numbers on each and every one of these. And what you just do is you block and copy that statute number, put it in your search bar, put NC, North Carolina GS, NCGS, and that stands for North Carolina General Statutes, and you'll get what the law is on that. All right, bottom line, you're gonna have to give certain information, all right? But one thing that is optional is email. Please provide us with an email address so we can quickly communicate with you if something is going on. Please do that. It's not required, but it is something we ask for. And if you give it, it is redacted. It is not available on the public record. So please do that. There is money. involved with this. Yes, you knew there was money, right, for registering your business, because we have to check it out and keep it on the record. So please bear in mind, these fees have got to be paid up front. All right. And then you will be hopefully submitting online, although you can certainly mail it. All right. This is if you're going to submit online, but not use the business creation tool. This is the way you can do it. So remember, 2 ways to do it online. All right, so double check always. Have you filled in the right, used the right form, filled in all the required blanks? Don't forget to sign. In this digital world, so many people don't sign. That's a problem. Okay, and please submit the form online. This is that tutorial up close and personal that I mentioned to you. All right, don't start spending lots of money until you get your documents back indicating that you've been approved, okay? Because we don't want you to have trouble. Congratulations, you're a North Carolina business, but it doesn't stop there, okay? And this is the what next, okay? These will guide you through that EIN I told you, the federal and tax state ID numbers. You got to get those. Remember, you're a separate entity, all right? Do you need any licenses and permits? Those are separate. Those are separate. All right. If you are a nonprofit, are you going to be soliciting funds? Reach out to our charitable solicitations division. Are you going to be registering marks? You can register marks at the state level or the federal level. A lot of businesses do not need to register at the federal level. It's a lot more expense and time, but it's up to you. All right. You come to the Secretary of State's office if you want to do it here. And then if you're going to raise money by offering stock or bonds and that kind of thing, even some forms of crowdfunding, please check us out because it's very serious consequences. All right. Generally speaking, securities have to be registered or they got to be exempt, but you still have to file paperwork. Bottom line is, if you're going to sell interest to fund your startup, reach out to us. Very important. All right. Because the idea is there's lots of rules out there and they're designed to protect investors and honest businesses. So please don't incur any liability, including criminal liability. So check with us first. All right. And trademark registration, I trust you all know all the brands and even within things like jewelry, things like that, you know, immediately recognizable. They're so important in terms of building value. All right. These are registered state and federal level. They have real value. All right. Bottom line, you can register state and federal. All right. So annual reports, please bear in mind, it's not a one and done. Nothing in life, it seems, is one and done, right? You get fit. You're not fit if you don't stay fit if you don't continue to work out. Same basically with your business registration. A lot of businesses got into trouble with that. They did not file their annual reports. Note, if you are a nonprofit, middle of the screen, go across, there is no annual report. All right. If you're a sole proprietor or general partnership, remember you didn't have to register at all. In fact, you can't register and there are certainly no reports. But for the other entity types, you got to report. All right. And you report annually, even if you're inactive. All right. Even if you're inactive, because there's no inactive status. You're literally legal active until you've filed indicating that you've withdrawn. Okay. Even unprofitable. All it is a contacts update. All right, very, very important. So this is done annually, tax time for most people. So if you ever have any questions, just check. And we're about out of time. So bottom line, I want you to remember, if you register, you got to check to make sure you also file your annual report. It's not a complicated piece of paper, but it's got to be done. Very important, or you lose the benefit of your report or your filing. All right. So do we have some questions? Do we have any questions about maintaining that registration, about registering your business and how to go about it?
So Ann, I do have some questions that came up in the chat. So first of all, just like give me like real quick, what bottom line, why should an artist register their business in North Carolina? Like what is the like reason? Like just real simple. I know you just did this whole presentation,
liability,
but like
spell
liability.
liability.
Okay.
You want to, so many people want to separate their what they're doing to earn a living from their personal assets. If you have a house, if you have a car, if you have savings, you know, if your family, if you and your husband or your wife have savings, retirement, do you want to put those at risk by engaging in activities? And let's be real, all kinds of activities can result in liability. Somebody comes into your studio and they slip and fall. Something falls, an art installation falls, a metal art installation falls and hurts somebody. All kinds of things can happen. Y'all can probably imagine more than I can because of the nature of your work. So bottom line is liability is a key motivator. That's why we talked about the why first, right?
Okay. Yeah. I think it was just, I think some folks were just getting caught up. There's so many parts of this, right? And there's just a lot. It's a lot to absorb for people.
It is a lot. And that's why I'm so glad each and every one of you are here. Please reach out to me or any member of the Secretary of State's office. There are people obviously who do this every single day, and they would be happy to,
Is it okay, Ann, if I share your email in the chat with everyone?
Oh, please do. Please
okay,
do.
I will do that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions?
I have a quick question. Hey, Ann, it's Beth Yerxa.
Hi there.
Hey, so I just want to clarify. So when you say liability, so you know a lot of people who work in the arts are not registered as LLCs or nonprofits or S corps. They are general partnerships or they sole proprietors. And so does a DBA registration, I mean, how does liability?
Thank you. Remember what I said earlier? Thank you, Beth. That's
let me put, so specifically, it seems like if you're a DBA or general partnership, registration would give notice.
It gives notice, but it doesn't eliminate liability. It does not eliminate liability. There's two pieces to this. There's the notice piece and there's the liability piece. Okay. The law in North Carolina requires transparency. The citizens are entitled to know who is behind a business. All right. The registration piece is separating you from your arts-based business, giving you a layer of protection from liability. So let's just say that somebody ordered or you ordered a whole bunch of equipment to make an art installation, and then something happened and you weren't able to pay. Do you want that provider to go into your personal assets? All right. That's also a possible risk. So it's not just the liability in terms of if somebody is hurt, but also, the cost of the business. Are you trying to keep them separate from your personal affairs?
I think that's a good point, Ann, because I think that liability, most artists think, is my art going to fall and hit someone on the head? So, Beth, go back to your
clarify one more thing. So I think what you're saying is that if you're a working artist of any type, performing or visual, and you become an LLC or an S corp, so according to that chart that you gave them, when you're choosing your corporate form, that helps you get some protection from liability. So I think that form that you gave everybody is very helpful in weighing those options of your corporate form and all the pros and cons of different choices. I guess the second question is, if you choose partnership or sole proprietorship, then what are the benefits of DBA registration?
Well, if you're using a name other than your full name, Beth Yerxa, if you're using just Beth, you are required. Let me say that again. You are required to file your DBA. And if you don't, you do that at your own risk. Not only if somebody is damaged some kind of way. Not only are you at risk for the direct damage, if any are found, but you're also at risk for paying for their lawyer and any investigator fees for tracking you down to figure out who's behind the business. All right. So really, you need that. And consider also, how is it that some other business like, Jessica or Taylor, how are they supposed to know you're doing business as Beth's bountiful, okay, what's a B? You're not going to go there. Okay. Well, anyway, how are they supposed to know you're doing business if you're not there in the public record? So please be very, very careful about that. Business registration is different from assumed business name. You may have to register a name that you've registered with the Secretary of State if you vary it, if you truncate it, if you find out I don't have that domain name that's been taken, I got to do something else, then you're still going to have to go and file an assumed business name. So thank you for asking. And remember, folks, registration is important. It's an essential first step to separate yourself from your business in terms of liability, but it is not sufficient. Remember what I said. You have to also act like it's a business. You got to handle your money separately. You have your business money, you have your personal money. All right. You don't use your personal credit cards or your business credit cards for each other, right? There's none of that. Separate out. That's the benefit. All right. Any other questions?
So Ann, I do have one from the chat. Laura Boykin asked about working as if you are a contractor or if you're contracted as an artist. So Laura, could you go ahead and unmute and ask that question specifically?
So yes, so as far as contractual work goes for either under the assumed name or as a proprietor or as a single proprietor or as in your single name because you just have been doing this work for so long, what kind of liability is there if it's contracted?
Well, if somebody is injured, then when I say injured, I don't just mean physically injured. I mean, if they're financially injured by your failure to perform, then they may sue you, in which case your assets are at risk. Your personal assets are at risk. All right. A DBA won't protect you from that situation. It will only protect you from additional damages of somebody also having to figure out who you are. Okay, do you see the difference?
So you're saying basically a DBA is an organizational tool.
No.
Well, I'm sorry, in that it sort of makes your business visible.
It makes your business visible. Who's behind the business? All right. It makes it visible because if it's Cynthia's creations, it's not clear that Cynthia Thice is behind that Cynthia's creations. Okay. So please, please beware of the difference. They are very different entities or different obligations. All right. Whether you choose to register your business is up to you. If you're using anything other than your real name, you got to file a DBA. All right. Any other questions?
I have a quick question that kind of stems off of that. So I believe I am registered as a sole proprietor underneath my legal name. And so now I know from this presentation I need to register my DBA. But I guess I'm confused. Will registering my DBA associate it with my sole proprietorship? Is that enough, or do I now have to do something so that they're connected? Is that technically connecting it?
Well, if you've already registered and then you file an assumed business name, then we want to know what your registered name is so it can connect up. And so please do let us know if you are operating under, well, you're operating under the same name. So.
And so sorry, my dog's barking, but by registering the DBA, I'll be able to do that. I'll be able to communicate that I am registering it. Is that correct?
When you register, that'll take care of it. I mean, you won't need to renew your DBA or anything like that if you registered your DBA before December 1st, 2017. So that will take care of it. All right. But if you change up your name a little bit, then you're going to have to file a DBA. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
And before we go to the next question, I just want to make an announcement here because I have a few people that are saying they need to drop off, but they don't want to miss this, Ann. So we will be putting this video on our YouTube channel. So if you, I know I just want to be respectful of folks' times because I know for many of you, this is your lunch and you need to get back to work. So if you don't want to miss out on the questions and you're, you can pop a question in the chat. We might answer it even if you're gone. Just let me know that you're not here so I don't try to call on you. Or you can stay. We're not going anywhere. I just don't want anybody to feel like they're being held hostage if they actually need to eat a lunch and go to work. So anyway, back to questions. Sorry.
Anybody else?
I have one.
All righty. Who's speaking?
Lois, Miss Lois. So I have a question. I have loisblasberg.com. And then on my Instagram, I'm Lois Blasberg Fine Art. And I think it's a little different variations on depending on whether or not I could use a plus sign or an ampersand across my Instagram and website and etc. Do I have to have an official DBA for each one, or just having my name in it?
You're saying Blasberg, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So it's clear who's behind the business, right? Because it's your legal name. That Lois Blasberg is not a name you just picked up.
Correct. Okay. Correct. Does that help?
Yeah, it helps that it's your real name and your whole name. See, where people get into trouble, and you can see this, if you just listed yourself as Lois and then some, other descriptive words to describe your work, then that wouldn't tell anybody who's behind it.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I have a weird one. Sorry, I'm putting my hi. So I've been I was in an LLC up until August, and now I'm forming my own business, but I've had my website for probably 4 years now. My legal name is Suzanne Hauser, but all through my career, I've gone by Susu. And so all of my IMDb, everything is Susu. So that doesn't qualify as using my legal name, right? Because it's Susu Hauser Photography is what my Instagram is. My website is susuhauser.com, and that's what I've had for 4+ years. So what would you suggest in that situation?
Okay, I can't tell you what to do. I cannot give legal advice, but I can tell you the statute is clear. The statute is clear. If you use anything other than your name or the name that you're registered under, if you're a registered North Carolina business entity, then you must file, okay? So it's the risks are yours if you don't. And think about it, it's $26.
Oh yeah. No, that's not, I guess more when I'm talking about, so like, I guess what I'm confused is my website that I've had for years is susuhauser.com. I've owned that domain for a long time. I'm so happy I have it, right? But I can't get Susu Hauser Photography. So I guess, I don't know what my question is. I need to file, but is that because you were saying your name should be, you know, across the board the same? I don't have that, and I don't know what the likelihood of getting everything, you know.
You're right. You're right. And you've been operating for a while, and you remember, you know, a lot of people are just starting out and they're doing this, but going forward, you know, this is something to bear in mind.
Yeah.
And you, going forward, can sort of modify things and carry your clients around along with you. But you can see how you want to have consistency to the extent you reasonably can. It's not just required by the law, and you can do whatever you want under the law, right? It just makes it harder for your clients to find you if you're not consistent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Good luck. Anybody else?
And I've got a question.
Yes, Frida.
Well, I'm just a small Etsy business. And late last year is when I started. And so I registered with the Department of Revenue to pay, I guess, to pay state tax.
Okay.
So now I'm discovering all these other things that you've talked about.
So Frida, thank you. That's, remember that I was telling you what now and then what later, what then. Well, see, that's one of the what thens, and you know, registering for your tax ID and following up on that. Did you speak with somebody about that? Are you, is the nature of your business such that you are collecting sales tax and that kind of thing?
Yes, and Etsy submits that on my behalf.
Okay.
So I'm not handling any tax myself, but if I do an on-site sale, like a Christmas sale, at a craft fair, then I'll use a Square and collect tax that way, which I will have to submit.
Thank you for mentioning that, Frida. A lot of people don't necessarily think about that, but you know, you sure don't want to get crosswise with the tax people. So, and we provide links to all of that when you go to our website. So we're trying to facilitate that for you. You are not, by the way, remember, you're not required to register your business.
Mm-hmm.
It's something you consider based on your circumstances, whether you're trying to separate out your personal from your professional, give yourself an additional layer of separation. And also, if you will, credibility in terms of going outside yourself and getting loans if you need them and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it looks like I put the cart before the horse here a little bit. I should have registered my DBA first.
Okay, remember, a DBA does not protect you from liability. It only affects, you know, damages if somebody has to figure out who's behind the business. But it is required if you use anything other than your
right.
name.
So I have to do that.
Yeah. If you're a sole proprietor who's not registered with the Secretary of State, then yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Fabulous questions. Thank you, Frida.
Oh, thank you. So I think I have a state tax ID number, which came with this certificate of registration with the Department of Revenue. Is that correct? That's my state tax number?
All right, do you have a federal one too? Well, you don't, because your federal is your Social Security. By the way, when you file as a business, you would get an EIN. You would next go to the IRS and get an employer ID number typically, just to separate that out from your personal, your personal. But that's one of those links that we connect you with. Okay, happy to do that. Anybody? Can Heidi writes, can business types be changed? Business types can be changed at some later point. And remember always, if you go out of business, please be sure to file a withdrawal or other document to indicate that. If you are a registered business, if you have filed an assumed business name, be sure you withdraw it. Why? Because otherwise people are going to think that you're still operating. And if there's somebody operating under your name and they're doing bad things, who are victims going to come to? Who are they going to come to? They're going to come to you because they can find you. So please be sure if you are no longer active that you withdraw. You make the appropriate filings, whether it's with the Register of Deeds and or with the Secretary of State. Okay. And remember, when your information changes, you got to update it so that it serves the intended purpose.
Excuse me, on that one, back when I was in my early 20s, many decades ago, I registered somehow, some way as a freelance art director. But you said some of that's going away if you did it before 2017. Does that mean I don't have to go back and figure out, because I don't ever, when I stopped freelancing, I didn't undo any paperwork.
Okay. Did you file a DBA?
I have no idea. I don't think so. It was 30 years ago, you know.
The beauty is that you can go, any of you can go to your local Register of Deeds online and check their database and see if you're there, or not just if somebody else is using the name you've chosen, but whether you're there already. You might see your own property in there, you know, your real estate, your home, that kind of thing. But, you know, you can check, and you can check our records, our business records, to see if you registered way back when, decades ago, as an LLC.
Okay, thank you. I was either a sole proprietor or an LLC, and I have no idea which.
That's really important, Lois. You make a good point, and that is, folks, seriously, withdraw, file the appropriate paperwork if you are no longer going to be operating. All right. You want to end that.
Thank you.
Public records. Well, my goodness, Cynthia, Beth, we got lots of people still on the line. I'm supposing
we do. Well, people can ask. You can just unmute in a gap and ask a question, or feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll definitely try to call on you if that is easier for folks. You know, we want to make sure that everyone does get their questions answered. And I did take liberties, as you said I could. I went ahead and put your email in the chat.
Thank you.
And again, for anybody that doesn't know, I'm assuming that the folks have already left, know how to do this. So this is a great time for me to explain this. If you don't know how already, go hover your mouse or your finger or whatever you're using over the chat bubble on your screen, and you can bring the chat box up, and you'll see either at the top or the bottom, depending on what interface you're using, you'll see 3 dots. If you click on those 3 dots, you can download the chat before you leave Zoom. That's also a setting. Some people have their Zoom set up to automatically download, but if you don't and you want to save the chat, and you want to save the chat from today, folks, there's some great answers to questions in here. There's also a lot of folks and have been putting in their businesses and their Instagrams and their websites and everything so that people can check each other out. That's always a great thing to do whenever, you know, as an artist, performer, any kind of person involved in the arts, whenever you make a connection with somebody, you want to make sure you double back and you know, realize, you know, all the things that all the loops you have in common with that person. So definitely make sure you download the chat before you leave today, folks.
Okay, and don't forget, there's lots of resources available in especially through Triangle Artworks, but also more broadly, and I'll share a PDF. Beth, Cynthia, can you all share the PDF that I give you with the people who attended afterward? Okay, yep. And I'm going to add some things. And one of the things I'll add is some places you can get low-cost assistance for lawyers. But here's the thing, you know, you want your team, a group of professionals. Remember I said bail, banker, insurance, accountant, lawyer. You know, you want your team that is there for the good times and for when things get rough. And, you know, you really, you know, you may have a consultation with somebody that's cheap in a one question consult. It may be free, it may be $50. But see, here's the thing. Where are they? What's their background or knowledge when things get rough, when waters get rough, when something happens, okay? So please, please, this is a starting point. It's not an ending point. I'm wishing all of you tremendous success, not only to realize your dreams regarding your artwork, but also to make it pay, have it support you. It is a business. Just because it's art doesn't mean it's not a business. So
nope, art is a business. That's what we say. Hey, Ann, could we take one last question before you go? Because I know that we're almost out of time. So, but Jessica asked about recommending a support team, and that's the banker, attorney, the banker, accountant, insurance, and lawyer for a creative production that's going to travel and involve international collaborations. How would you go about assembling that team? Is that going to be just you really need to be more specific about who you reach out to, people that have more expertise?
Well, what I would suggest is you start with Triangle Artworks and see whom they refer you to, seriously, because they're dealing with artists like all of you. And so they've got that body of knowledge, a starting point. Remember, but professionals are service people, just like all the other service people you work with. It's real important that you find professionals whom you can communicate with. We all know people can be excellent, but if they can't communicate with us, if they don't listen to us, you know, hey, how much value are they really? All right. And, you know, talk about price, have an idea. How much is this going to cost? All right. So seriously, have your team, but screen the people that will be on your team, and have this team be a group that you want to go stay with. Right. And if somebody doesn't pan out, don't hesitate to find a substitute. You got to have people you can rely on.
Great. Ann, thank you so much.
Oh,
I think I'm going to make sure you have to download this chat, because people really appreciated this. This has been a really great experience, I think, for a lot of folks. You've answered a lot of questions, and it's complicated. It's such a complicated issue. And I feel like it, you know, sometimes feels a little bit overwhelming when you're an artist and you're first starting out, and sometimes because you just want to make your work and sell your work, and then, or you want to do your work and sell and get paid for it. You don't want to have to think about all of these little business things, but they're important.
You get your team. That's
right.
You get your team.
We all have to
minutes, right? Thank you all. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Cynthia. And thanks to all of you. And I look forward to seeing more about all of you. Take care.
Thank you again, Ann. So, and
You're welcome.
Yep. And thank you, folks. Once again, as we conclude this presentation, we're going to get it onto our YouTube channel fairly soon. It takes us a little while. I appreciate everyone coming out today. If you have any programming ideas or questions about this program or other programs we've offered, you can email me directly. I'm Cynthia at triangleartworks.org, or you can just reach out in general to Triangle Artworks at info@triangleartworks.org. We're on all the social medias, and we love to see you and talk to you. So please tag us on Instagram, tag us on Facebook, tag us on Twitter, so that we can know about the things that you have going on. That way we can share them and sort of cheer you on in your business. So I want to thank everybody one last time, and have a great, great day. Bye-bye.